You don't choose a job. You choose a rhythm your soul can dance in. Imagine this. You walk into a crowded room. Music is loud. Conversations swirl. People are laughing, networking, performing their social dances. Some move from group to group, thriving. Others sit quietly, sipping a drink, scanning for a quiet corner or an escape. Where are you in this picture? Are you energized by the buzz or quietly suffocating inside it? We've all been told, find your passion, follow your dreams, learn to network, be bold. But what if I told you all of that advice becomes dangerous if you don't first answer this one question? Where does your energy come from and where does it drain? Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of deep psychology, argued that our psyche is governed by invisible forces, and one of the strongest is how we orient our psychological energy. Not through behavior, not through appearance, but by where we naturally recharge. This isn't just about being shy or outgoing. This is about understanding what feeds your soul and what slowly kills it, no matter how successful you appear on the outside. Because here's the truth. A job that goes against your energetic type is slow suicide. And a relationship that misreads your energy will burn you out even if both. People are good. In this video, we'll dive deep into Carl Jung, revolutionary idea of introversion and extraversion, not as fixed traits, but as energy patterns. You'll learn how to recognize your true orientation, how to apply it to choosing a career, and how to build relationships that don't drain you, but recharge you. This isn't personality fluff. This is survival. Because until you live in harmony with your internal rhythm, everything else will feel just slightly off. By the end of this journey, you won't just say I'm an introvert or I'm outgoing. You'll know when to act, when to retreat, when to connect, and most of all, how to build a life that matches the truth of who you are. So ask yourself, are you living in alignment with your psychological energy, or have you been wearing the wrong skin all along? Let's find out. Carl Jung and the real meaning of introvert-extrovert. Let's get one thing clear. Carl Jung never cared whether you like to talk or prefer to stay home. That's a pop psych version of his theory, watered down, oversimplified, and frankly, misleading. Jung was after something deeper. He wanted to know, where does your psychological energy flow inward or outward? Because in his view, that direction shaped your entire inner world, how you process reality, how you make decisions, how you respond to life itself. Here's what he found. There are two primary modes of energy orientation in the human psyche: introversion and extraversion. But don't be fooled. These are not about behavior. They are not about being quiet or loud. Jung warned us, there's no such thing as a pure introvert or pure extrovert. Such a person would be in a lunatic asylum. What he meant is this: we are all on a spectrum. Some lean inward into thought, memory, imagination. Others lean outward into action, people, sensation. But nobody lives completely at one pole. And those who try to burn out. So what does it really mean to be introverted? Jung said, you naturally recharge in solitude. You live in your inner world. Ideas, feelings, impressions, they matter more to you than external trauma. You reflect before speaking. You seek meaning, not noise. And extroverted? You feed off external stimulation. You think through conversation. You process reality as it happens aloud, in motion. You're driven by what's out there: people, events, possibilities. You don't withdraw from the world, you plunge into it. Here's the punchline. It's not about who you appear to be. It's about how you recover from the world. That's the Jungian test. Introverts don't dislike people. They simply get drained when they're always on. Extroverts aren't shallow. They just lose energy when they're stuck inside their head too long. But why does this matter? Because your entire life, your career path, your friendships, your romantic choices will either amplify or deplete your energy, depending on whether they align with your core orientation. Imagine an introvert trapped in a hyperactive sales team, forced to pitch every day. Or an extrovert locked in a research lab, analyzing data in silence for 10 hours. On paper, both might succeed, but inside, they're bleeding energy. Slowly, quietly. That's the trap Jung warned us about, living against your psyche for too long. It may not kill you, but it'll erode you in ways you can't quite name until it's too late. So, before we talk about what career you should choose, before we even mention relationship types or social dynamics, you need to ask yourself this: do I live inward out or outward in? Once you answer that, everything else begins to fall into place. Before you choose a career, identify your core energy first. Here's the mistake most people make when choosing a career. They ask, what am I good at? Or what's trending right now? But they never ask, what type of environment matches my psychological energy? Carl Jung would call that a tragic oversight. Because in his view, no matter how talented you are, if you live against your dominant energy type, introverted or extraverted, you will slowly erode from the inside out. Not because the work is hard, but because it's not wired for you. Let's put it this way: you don't get burned out because of how much you work. You get burned out when the work requires you to be someone you're not for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 20 years. That's why before we talk about what you should do, you need to understand what you naturally are. And that means asking the only question Jung really cared about: where does your energy go when no one's watching? Let's run a quick internal audit. No personality test needed, just brutal honesty. How do you recharge after a draining day? Do you crave silence, solitude, and your own thoughts? Or do you call someone, go out, or move your body to feel alive again? 2. When facing a big decision, do you think things through in your head, maybe journal about it first? Or do you talk it out loud, ask opinions, and feel clarity only through interaction? 3. In group settings, do you observe first, prefer depth over chit-chat, and speak only when ready? Or do you dive right in, improvise as you go, and gain energy from the crowd? 4. When you're overwhelmed, do you feel the urge to withdraw and reset alone? Or do you seek stimulation and new experience, a conversation, a distraction? If you lean toward inward, thoughtful, solo patterns, you likely lean introvert. If you lean toward outward, responsive, socially energized patterns, you lean extrovert. If you saw yourself in both, depending on context, welcome to the ambivert zone. And no, it's not just a trendy middle ground. It's a real psychological flexibility, and it comes with its own strengths and blind spots. But why does this matter for your job? Because every profession, every team dynamic, every workspace either feeds your energy or drains it. And the danger isn't just fatigue. It's the slow loss of your natural strengths, buried under constant adaptation. So here's your task before anything else. Forget the resume. Forget job titles. Forget what you should be. First, find out, what kind of rhythm does your soul naturally move in? Once you answer that, your career path stops being a guessing game and starts becoming a map home. Careers for introverts, the silent intelligence. Here's a truth nobody wants to admit in today's loud, fast-moving world. Quiet minds often carry the loudest wisdom, but because they don't shout, they're often ignored, especially in career choices. In a society that rewards visibility, charisma, and assertiveness, introverts can feel invisible. They're told to speak up, be more assertive, get out there as if their quiet nature is a defect to be fixed. But Carl Jung saw it differently. He believed that introverts possess a unique form of intelligence, one rooted in depth, not volume. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Carl Jung. An introvert doesn't just think, they process. They don't just see, they reflect. And this ability to go deep, to pause, to analyze before acting, makes them indispensable in certain kinds of work. Let's break it down. 1. The ideal work environment. Introverts thrive in environments where they can work independently or in small, focused teams. The pace allows for reflection, not constant reaction. Noise, literal or emotional, is minimized. Their ideas are valued based on depth, not delivery volume. 2. Strengths of introverts in the workplace: concentration, able to go deep on tasks without distraction. Listening, pick up subtle cues others miss. Emotional intelligence, sensitive to mood shifts and inner motivations. Written communication, often more powerful through writing than speech. Strategic insight, see patterns, risks, and long-term consequences others overlook. 3. Best fit career fields for introvert. Here are some areas where introverts quietly dominate: writing and editing authors, content strategists, copywriters, research and academia data analysts, scientists, librarians, design and creative arts, graphic designers, illustrators, composers, therapy and counseling, clinical psychologists, therapists, coaches who prefer deep one-on-one work, tech and engineering developers, software architects, systems analysts. Independent entrepreneurship, building businesses in solitude with focus and vision. But even in these fields, the key is environmental alignment. A writer forced to brainstorm loudly in group settings all day might feel just as drained as an introvert doing sales calls nonstop. So it's not just the title, it's the daily rhythm of the role that matters. 4. Common pitfalls for introverts: burnout from overexposure, taking on roles that demand constant socializing. Imposter syndrome, feeling less valid because they're not loud leaders. Underestimated contribution, because they don't self-promote aggressively. But here's the truth. The most dangerous thing an introvert can do is mimic an extrovert long-term. Not because they can't, but because it quietly corrodes their vitality. If you're an introvert, you don't need to become louder. You need to become clearer on who you are, how you work best, and where your real strengths lie. And if you're still doubting whether this quiet force can thrive in a loud world, just remember, Einstein was an introvert. He didn't network his way into history. He thought his way there. Careers for extroverts when energy comes from action. Some people don't just walk into a room, they light it up. They think aloud. They move fast. They spark ideas mid-conversation. They don't need time alone to recover from life, they recover through life itself. These are the extroverts. And for them, work isn't just a task, it's a stage, a playground, a living conversation. Carl Jung didn't see this as better or worse than introversion. He saw it as a different orientation of the psyche, where introverts are drawn to the internal world of thoughts and feelings. Extroverts are wired for the external world of people, experience, and real-time engagement. Extraversion means a positive relation of subject to object, a strong interest in the outer world, and a preference for action over reflection. Carl Jung. So what happens when extroverts are placed in the right environment? Magic. Momentum. Movement. Let's break down the real advantages and risks for extroverts in the workplace. 1. The ideal work environment. Extroverts thrive when they are around people regularly. There's movement, variety, and external stimulation. They receive frequent feedback, verbal, social, or energetic. The pace is quick, and decisions are made in motion. 2. Strengths of extroverts in the workplace. Quick decision-making, comfortable in fast-paced environments. People-oriented skills, natural communicators, negotiators, and connectors. High adaptability, handle change and pressure well. Team leadership, often step naturally into visible leadership roles. Charisma under pressure, perform well in presentations, pitches, and high-stakes moments. 3. Best fit career fields for extroverts. Extroverts often excel in sales and marketing, relationship building, persuasion, energy-driven performance, teaching and public speaking, real-time engagement, presence and audience connection, event planning and hospitality, multitasking, coordination, and people wrangling, leadership and management, guiding teams, motivating action, decision-making, politics and activism, public influence, negotiation, visibility, media and broadcasting, expression, reaction, entertainment, In these spaces, the extrovert's need for stimulation is not a distraction, it's fuel. They don't just survive the spotlight, they expand in it. 4. Common pitfalls for extroverts. Restlessness and isolation. Struggle with jobs that require solitude or slow pacing. Avoidance of depth can skim the surface of ideas or emotions if not mindful. Dependency on external validation. Risk of burnout if approval is inconsistent. Overpromising under pressure. React quickly without enough reflection. Jung cautioned that extroverts, if they remain overly identified with the external, can lose touch with their inner world. They may succeed outwardly but feel inwardly lost. The solution isn't to suppress that extroverted flame. It's to channel it into environments that welcome movement, feedback, and collaboration. Because an extrovert stuck behind a desk, writing reports in silence, is like a race car trapped in a parking lot. So if you're an extrovert, don't apologize for your need to connect, move, speak, and act. Just be sure your career doesn't demand silence from someone who was built to roar. Careers for ambiverts, the warriors between worlds. You've probably heard this before. I'm kind of an introvert, but also a bit extroverted, depending on the situation. And maybe you've always felt stuck between two camps. You enjoy solitude, but too much of it makes you restless. You're great at conversations, but you hate small talk. You can lead a team, but you also love working alone. Congratulations, you're not confused. You're an ambivert, and that might just be your greatest psychological advantage. Carl Jung never coined the term ambivert, but he anticipated its existence. In his writings, he said, "The psyche is not static. It is a dynamic system of opposites seeking balance. Ambiverts live in this balance. They don't pick a side, they move between them, depending on context, energy, and purpose." Let's break it down. 1. What is an ambivert, really? An ambivert is someone who has both introverted and extroverted tendencies, switches modes based on environment and energy level, can operate effectively in both quiet reflection and social engagement, doesn't feel at home in fixed labels. Ambiverts are not indecisive, they're adaptive. They don't lack identity, they embody psychological fluidity. 2. Strengths of ambiverts in the workplace. Versatility, can work well solo and in teams. Emotional balance, know when to speak and when to listen. Flexible leadership, adjust leadership style to fit team dynamics. Holistic thinking, blend deep introspection with real-world action. High social intelligence, relate to a broader range of personality types. 3. Best fit career fields for ambivert. Ambiverts often thrive in roles that require both deep thought and external connection, strategic vision and people skills. Perfect fit examples: coaching and consulting balance deep listening with action plans. Creative direction guide others while protecting personal space. Psychology and therapy attuned to emotions, yet professionally grounded. Entrepreneurship thrive in solitude during strategy, shine in pitch meetings. Leadership and strategy adapt communication style to match any audience. Education and facilitation shift between lecturing and mentoring. Ambiverts aren't medium people. They're bridge builders. They connect the inner and outer world. They help introverts feel seen and extroverts feel heard. 4. Common pitfalls for ambiverts. Over-adaptation, so good at shifting roles they lose touch with their own rhythm. Misunderstood identity, others try to force them into one camp. Energy mismanagement, don't always know when they're depleted because they can function in both modes. Jung believed that maturity comes when you begin to integrate both your inner and outer worlds. Ambiverts live this integration daily. But the key is to do it consciously, not just reactively. So if you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold good, you weren't meant to. Your gift is movement. Your power is nuance. Your task is to know when to step in and when to step back. Because sometimes the best leaders aren't at the front or the back. They're the ones who can walk between both worlds with grace. Energy and burnout when misalignment slowly drains your soul. Let's get brutally honest. Most people don't burn out because they're lazy. They burn out because they're living against their psychological energy every single day. You see, talent isn't enough. Even passion isn't enough. What truly sustains you long-term is alignment. Alignment between who you are inside and how you move through the world outside. And when those two forces are in conflict, that's when the slow bleed begins. We don't find energy by pushing harder. We find it by moving in the direction our soul already wants to go. Reinterpretation of Jungian wisdom. Carl Jung's entire framework of introversion and extraversion wasn't just a way to classify people. It was a warning system. It helped you detect when your psyche was being violated, not by abuse or trauma, but by a lifestyle that contradicts your nature. 1. The hidden cost of misaligned work. Imagine these all-too-common scenarios. An introvert in a high-pressure sales job, forced to perform daily in front of clients. An extrovert in an isolated research position, staring at spreadsheets with zero human interaction. An ambivert stuck in rigid routines, unable to flex their natural adaptability. On paper, they're all employed. In reality, they're being drained day after day, not by the work, but by the emotional dissonance the work creates. This is how burnout sneaks in. Chronic fatigue that rest doesn't fix. Anxiety in anticipation of routine tasks. Loss of creativity. Emotional numbness. Resentment toward roles they once found exciting. Burnout, then, is not just a mental health issue. It's a soul-level misalignment between how you're wired and how you're working. 2. Signs you're not working with your energy. Ask yourself, do I feel like I'm performing a role rather than being myself? Do I feel more alive after work or more like a deflated shell? Do I fantasize more about escaping than about evolving? I tired? Or am I drained? If you relate to more than one of these, your energy isn't being managed, it's being bled. 3. Realignment is not a luxury. It's survival. Jung believed that true well-being begins when you stop betraying your energy for the sake of conformity. And that may require changing job roles within your field, restructuring your day to include solitude or connection, depending on your type, saying no to tasks that violate your flow, even if you're capable, redefining success from what looks good to what feels sustainable. Because here's the truth, you can fake it for months, even years. But energy doesn't lie, and your nervous system is always keeping score. Burnout isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to recognize it and to correct course before it becomes identity. So, the next time you're asking yourself, why am I so tired? Ask instead, where am I misaligned? Because in a world that tells you to push through, Jung whispers, pull back and return to your source. Relationships and energy who you love can recharge or drain you. We often think of relationships as a matter of compatibility, shared values, shared goals, physical attraction, humor, lifestyle. But Carl Jung would ask something deeper. Does this relationship align with your psychological energy, or does it deplete it? Because love isn't just about affection, it's about energetic fit. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can love someone deeply and still be energetically incompatible. And that mismatch doesn't always look like drama or toxicity. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. 1. Introvert-extravert pairings, a beautiful mess or the perfect balance? Let's start with the classic contrast. The introvert partner needs silence to recharge. The extrovert partner needs conversation to feel alive. They meet. There's chemistry. The introvert is drawn to the extrovert's light. The extrovert is intrigued by the introvert's depth. But what happens after the honeymoon fades? If they're unaware of their energy dynamics, the cycle begins. The introvert feels invaded. The extrovert feels ignored. The introvert withdraws to recover. The extrovert talks more to reconnect. Both feel misunderstood. Sound familiar? Now, this doesn't mean introverts and extroverts shouldn't date. In fact, When done consciously, they can balance each other. The introvert teaches depth and reflection. The extrovert brings energy and openness. But it only works if both respect the other's rhythm, not try to change it. 2. Ambiverts in relationships, the great translators. Ambiverts can flow between roles. They know when to talk and when to shut up, when to go out and when to stay in, when to push and when to pause. In relationships, they often play the bridge, understanding both ends of the spectrum. But that flexibility comes with a cost. They can lose themselves trying to adapt to others. So if you're an ambivert, don't forget to ask, who adapts to me? 3. The hidden drain, energetic mismatch in daily life. Here's how subtle energetic mismatch shows up. You feel on guard around someone who never stops talking. You feel guilty for needing time alone in a relationship that demands closeness 24/7. You feel restless with a partner who avoids all stimulation or change. And then eventually, you start to betray your own rhythm to keep the peace. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. 4. The cure, energetic awareness, emotional intensity. Instead of asking, do they love me? Start asking, do they leave me drained or restored? Instead of asking, are we compatible? Ask, do our rhythms respect each other? Jung believed the deepest intimacy isn't built on similarity, but on mutual respect for how the other person's psyche works. So don't look for someone who completes you. Look for someone who understands how you recharge. Because the right person won't just fit into your life. They'll protect the energy that keeps you alive. Culture and expectation when extraversion becomes a false ideal. Take a look around. Who gets promoted the fastest? Who dominates meetings, stages, social media feeds? Who's told they have leadership potential, charisma, or natural influence? Answer, the extraverts. Or at least the people who act like extraverts. We live in a culture, particularly in the West, that worships outwardness. Fast-talking, high energy, confident performers are seen as successful. Meanwhile, quiet thinkers are told to come out of their shell or fake it till you make it. Carl Jung would have seen this as deeply dangerous. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. But what if the world keeps rewarding you only when you become someone else? 1. Western bias, the cult of the extrovert. From a young age, kids are praised for raising their hand quickly, leading group discussions, speaking confidently in front of a crowd. Rarely are they praised for deep listening, reflective thinking, quiet wisdom. In school, workplaces, and even dating culture, extraversion is seen as normal, while introversion is treated as something to overcome. Job listings say they want team players, dynamic communicators, outgoing personalities. What they rarely say is, we're looking for someone calm, deep, and quietly brilliant. And so introverts adapt. They push through. They play the game. And inside, they slowly disconnect from who they really are. 2. The cost of forced extraversion. The danger isn't just external, it's internalized. Introverts begin to doubt their value. Ambiverts force themselves toward the loud end of the spectrum. Even extroverts suffer, trying to maintain an energy that becomes performative. And what happens? We don't just lose energy. We lose authenticity. We lose the diversity of psychological styles that make collaboration powerful. Because not everyone should lead from the front. Some are meant to lead from behind, from within, from the shadows, and that's not weakness. That's structure. 3. Jung's warning, one-sided development is a trap. Jung didn't just diagnose society, he predicted this imbalance. He wrote that modern humans suffer not from lack of progress, but from spiritual one-sidedness. When we over-identify with outer success, image, noise, and performance, we sever the inner world. And a society that rewards only extraversion becomes spiritually shallow, a machine that celebrates movement, but forgets direction. 4. Redefining success beyond visibility. True success isn't about being seen. It's about being centered. The quiet artist working in solitude. The strategist who says little in meetings but writes game-changing ideas afterward. The therapist who listens more than talks. These people are not lesser. They are aligned. And in Jung's world, alignment always wins over appearance. So if you've ever felt guilty for needing space, if you've ever faked energy just to survive a day at work, if you've ever wondered why being yourself feels like swimming upstream, you're not wrong. You're just living in a culture that has confused noise with value. But you don't have to play that game forever. Jung didn't, and neither should you. Personalized growth career as a mirror of psychological maturity. Most career advice sounds like this. What are you good at? What do you enjoy? What pays the bills? Useful questions, but psychologically shallow. Because they assume your identity is fixed. Carl Jung would laugh at that. For him, the question was never just what should I do? It was, who am I becoming, and does my work serve that transformation? This is the difference between career planning and individuation. The lifelong process of becoming your true psychological self, not the version others expect. 1. You are not just your personality type. Maybe you were a quiet child. An observer. Maybe you were the loudest in the room. A performer. But that doesn't mean you're doomed to stay that way. Jung believed personality is dynamic, shaped by both nature and nurture, then transformed through conscious growth. That means an introvert can develop public speaking skills without losing their essence. An extrovert can learn to love silence without betraying their drive. An ambivert can learn when to commit and when to let go. Growth doesn't mean changing who you are. It means integrating what's missing, balancing light and shadow, inner and outer. 2. Your career should evolve with your psyche. Carl Jung mapped the human life into phases of psychological development. Early life equals adaptation, fitting in, building ego, finding roles. Midlife equals confrontation. The mask begins to crack, and deeper questions arise. Later, life equals integration, seeking meaning, wholeness, and alignment. If you chose your career in your 20s to prove something, it may no longer fit in your 30s or 40s when your values shift. And that's not failure. That's growth. Too many people stay in roles they've outgrown not because they can't leave, but because they haven't updated their self-image. 3. From identity to calling. Your job isn't just a paycheck or a title. It's a stage in the Jungian sense for you to play out your psychological trauma, confront your patterns, and expand into your full self. So ask yourself, is my career supporting who I am now or who I used to be? Does it stretch me in meaningful ways or just exhaust me? Am I making decisions out of fear or out of alignment? The answers to these questions don't just shape your RSUM. They shape your psyche. 4. Practical step. Career check-in for psychological growth. Every few years, ask yourself, what parts of me are underused in my current role? Am I avoiding something that would force me to grow? What energy, introverted/extraverted, have I repressed lately, and how can I express it safely? Your career path, then, becomes a spiral. Not a ladder, but a psychological unfolding. So stop asking, what's my type? Start asking, where am I in my transformation and what's the next psychological step I need to take? Because in Jung's map of the soul, the destination isn't success, it's wholeness. Conclusion, you were never meant to fit a label, but to find your rhythm. So, after all this talk of introverts, extroverts, and ambiverts, let's be honest. You're not a type. You're not a label. You're not a box to tick or a category to belong to. You're a living, evolving rhythm. A pattern of energy that changes, adapts, matures if you let it. Carl Jung never wanted to define you. He wanted to liberate you from stereotypes, from expectations, from the false belief that you have to stay the same to be valid. The greatest tragedy of the self is not being misunderstood by others, but being misaligned with your own nature. inspired by Jung's individuation theory. So if you've been working a job that exhausts you, loving someone who doesn't understand your inner rhythm, or living a version of yourself designed to impress the outside world, then this is your invitation to stop. Stop identifying with roles. Stop chasing labels. Stop pretending that success is louder than peace. Start listening, really listening to the energy underneath your choices. Because once you align your career, your relationships, and your lifestyle with your true psychological energy, you don't just feel better. You become clear, centered, grounded, powerful in a quiet, undeniable way. So now, it's your turn. Who are you, really? Where do you fall on this energy spectrum? And more importantly, are you living from that truth or just surviving under a mask? Drop a comment and tell us, are you an introvert, extrovert, or ambivert? Has Jung's perspective changed how you see your work or your relationships? If this video gave you a new lens to understand yourself, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might be living out of sync with their true rhythm. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply to come back to ourselves.